Welcome, everybody. I am here today with my beloved teacher, Erin Geesaman Rabke, and I am so honored that she has agreed to do this video interview to get the news out about my Radiant Living Online School of Ayurveda that starts in 2015. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about Erin, and I can't encapsulate in this interview how fantastic she has been and such a key player in and influence in my life. And I think that you'll see later on in this interview when she does a sample teaching that I've been so incredibly influenced by her in my own teaching. So Erin learned about yoga and Ayurveda as a teenager. How old were you when you encountered these methodologies, and who introduced you to them?
Well, I first got into yoga probably, I think I was like a sophomore in high school, whatever that is, 15, 14, 15, something like that. And I borrowed a book from the library. I was just really into it. Actually, what the first thing that goes back, this is funny, from the very old days was I used to watch when I was a little kid this TV show called That's Incredible. Do you remember that show?
Yes.
I haven't watched TV in 20 years, so I don't remember much. My references are old, but on this show there was a yogi who was featured, somebody who sat in lotus position, and I was probably like less than 10 years old, and I was so like, it's like a past life connection or I don't know what, but it really lit me up. And then when I found a yoga book in the Sandy City Library, I borrowed that, and I don't know if I ever returned it actually. Brought yoga to my dance company that I danced with in high school. It was really fun. We did that together. And then Ayurveda wasn't till I started working at a bookstore when I was 18, and they had there were a lot of lectures I read about in Catalyst magazine, and there used to be an Ayurvedic physician who lived in Salt Lake City. I'm blanking on his name right now, but I went to lectures in some funky little old building in Salt Lake as a teenager, just really interested in learning about Ayurveda.
Wow, I've heard of that physician at an Indian grocery store there one time. Actually, this person said, "Oh, we haven't had an Ayurvedist here for years. We used to have one that, and we would keep things in stock for him, and then he left, and
Yeah.
nobody's done it since." So, I have high hopes that somebody from that area will get training somewhere. I'd love to have some students from the Salt Lake City area because there's a huge market there for an Ayurvedist, and nobody's filling the position permanently. I know you have people visit, but
Mhm.
nobody permanent. And Erin she dropped out of nursing school when she started having clinical experience in the hospital, and it didn't resonate. She just did not do that, so she designed her own degree program, and that's very fitting. I mean, I've watched you evolve so much over the past 10 years. I've known you, but it just makes all this makes sense that you found a book on your own and you designed your own uh, degree program, and you don't fit into any one category nicely.
No.
Yeah, you're
It's true.
divergent. I don't know if that's a popular teen story and movie that's out right now. So you just
Oh, Divergent. I don't know.
divergent. Yeah, it's you just don't fit into a nice box. You're incredibly too expansive for that. And well, so I met you 10 years ago, so we need to celebrate our 10-year
Yeah.
anniversary. You were leading a yoga teacher training with Peter Franzik at what was then Soma Yoga Studio, and I did a year-long training with you. And during that year, you were in the midst of training in the Feldenkrais method. So
Mhm.
I very much benefited from every time you'd get back from a training, you'd say, "Oh, we're gonna interlace our toes today. You'll never believe what we did this time. So your
Mhm.
passion was contagious, and I
Mhm.
developed a really deep love and appreciation for the Feldenkrais method, and especially how you transmit it, as well as your
Mhm.
husband Carl. Um, and your most recent evolutionary step has been a 3-year body life program that combines the Feldenkrais method, Zen Buddhist meditation,
Mhm.
and other integrative therapies. So, my part of my vision for this Ayurvedic school is to modernize it and bring in some of these other technologies, because Ayurveda really does encompass everything, and as it's going through its own evolutionary process, I want to expose people to as many integrative, wonderful, yummy technologies as I can.
It's wonderful.
So, Erin, I am wondering if you could share, um, from your end of things, how you've evolved. In my from my perspective, you are at the top of the field of teaching embodiment practices.
Mm.
So, can you talk a little bit about your process?
I I feel like right now I almost should have asked how long we're going to go for this because I could talk a long time just about that. But cut me off if I'm going too far because I'm very passionate about this stuff and can talk at length about it.
I want
So yeah,
to, yeah, I want you to speak. I don't want to be, I want this to feel like out of time. So whatever you want, whatever comes, just follow that.
okay, thanks. So maybe I can even just start around the time we met, which was 10 years ago. So I had been a full-time yoga teacher I started in 1995, so it was 2005 that we met for 10 years. And I had a really powerful experience. I think it was in 2003. So I have been a practitioner in the Buddhist tradition since 1994, also for a long time. And I went away to do a solo retreat. I rented this cabin in the mountains of Crestone to do a silent meditation retreat by myself. For the first year, it was 6 weeks, and the second year, 8 weeks. Before motherhood, back when I could go practice for 2 months on my own. It was awesome. And a really important experience that happened for me on that retreat was, you know, um, it was kind of self-guided. I was in touch with my teacher, but I was just by myself in this really quiet mountain cabin, composting toilet, solar panel lights, as rustic and simple as it could be. And I had 3 books, which were all about the meditation practices I was doing, and I was encouraged to read less than an hour a day. So it was really in the experience. And basically, I was just doing my practice. I would journal about it. And I would spend, an hour and a half a day doing an asana practice to support myself for a lot of sitting, and hanging out of the cabin. And after my system really started to unwind from just city life to like quiet living in the mountains, I got really quiet and settled. And I had this most painful but really profound discovery, which was everything else I was doing during these days in the cabin, from cooking my food to washing my dishes to sitting to, washing my clothes in the sink or whatever and hanging them out to dry, I could really be in presence. I wasn't in my head directing my experience. I was in my experience. And the one time every day that I found I was shockingly most in my head was when I was on my yoga mat. And this voice would come in saying, giving me directions, as it does, like ground the outer edge of your back heel or rotate your thigh or whatever it was saying. And it was, I never would have noticed this in my normal life. It was really that context of such a quiet retreat space that I found I wasn't practicing union at a certain level. What I was doing was, in some way, reinforcing a body-mind split, excuse me. And I was in my head directing my body as if it was this thing down there. And it really disturbed me to notice this, and because I was a full-time teacher at that time, I realized I didn't want to be teaching in such a way that would reinforce this for the people I was sharing the practice with also. So I came home from that retreat really kind of unsettled and confused. And what am I doing? And what do I do with this information? And it wasn't like I made it up. This was what came from how I was trained as a teacher, too. And so somehow in that time, I I'm a bookaholic. I have this book problem. And one of the books that was on my shelf that I hadn't read yet, I had bought a year before or so, was called Mindful Spontaneity, A Return to Natural Movement. And it's written by Ruthie Elan, you know that book, who's this awesome 80-something-year-old Israeli Feldenkrais practitioner. And that book helped me so much. And I found it was so yogic in that way of what I was discovering, that it was in my body and with my movement and just paying attention to my experience, that I wasn't this head directing this body thing down there, but I had such a deep experience of wholeness. I also, at the time, am I going too long? Is this okay?
No, keep going. Keep going.
Okay. I was teaching yoga for people with back problems, and I had back problems myself, overstretching sacroiliac ligaments that were already loose with a lot of asana practice. And though I did a lot of yoga therapy training around, working with the sacrum and the back with Gary Craftso, I was really good at helping other people with that, but my problems seemed to persist in my practice. And so I remembered lying on my living room floor doing a lesson out of that book, which is such a non-ideal way to do Feldenkrais. I read a paragraph, put the book down, did the movement, picked the book up, read, what am I supposed to do next, and did it. And even in minutes of doing a very non-ideal kind of practice like that, my back reorganized so profoundly, so easily. I was just stunned by the obvious evidence that whoever was doing this work was really smart and was really onto something. So then I ended up, along with my husband, signing up for a 4-year Feldenkrais training program. And then I've done Feldenkrais all these years, and I love that so very much. And the for me is embodied life training. We just 3 years embodied life work with a man who has sort of a similar history to the two of us. So I had heard about him for years because I was a practitioner in the Buddhist tradition and a Feldenkrais practitioner. Both of these are awareness-based practices. And people kept saying, oh, you're a Buddhist and you like Feldenkrais? Do you know Russell Dellman? Do you know this guy? And I ordered his CDs and didn't have a super profound connection with them. They were nice, but then I met him. I invited him to do a training for Feldenkrais practitioners here and had the most profound experience of sitting with someone with such a quality of presence and care and the most profound listening I've ever seen any human being, and how he listens to people. It blew my mind. And what he's teaching in the embodied life work after he was trained in, I think, the late 70s, so however long that is, he's been a Feldenkrais teacher and then a trainer of practitioners since then, 40 years, something like that, 30, 40. He's also simultaneously been a practitioner in the Zen tradition. And he's integrating, well, let me back up to just say, he had this really unique perspective of being with movers, like Feldenkrais people or yoga people, and noticing what was missing in their integration in their whole life. Likewise, being with people who could sit on their cushion but weren't so in their bodies or integrating it in that piece. And then it brings in these brilliant, neurologically based, some of them, inner inquiry, listening to our own body wisdom experience. And it's just amazing. I'm very excited. So Carl and I are teaching a lot of embodied life work now, and it's wonderful. I love it. It's brilliant.
That is great. And this will be, kind of like us publicly negotiating how you're going to come into the Radiant Living Online School of Ayurveda. But it would
Mm.
be wonderful if you could come in early on, sometime in January, because I envision getting people started even with just a very simple daily sitting practice.
Hmm.
And so that would be great if you could come in right at the beginning and get us started.
It'd be great.
hmm Yeah, I've had a
Yeah.
lot of people say, I'm interested in this because of the meditation piece. I know that that would benefit me, and I've done all the reading and I know the science behind meditation benefits, but I have no idea how to get started.
Yeah. I love teaching beginners too because it's such a it can be such a friendly and non-intimidating thing, or it can be this really heavy, I'm not doing it right, stressful version. And I love to plant the seeds such that they're not going to grow into that uptight about our meditation kind of way. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So
So,
yeah, I'd
and
love to do
I'm
that.
interested what you said about Russell Delman, like that he himself really seems enlightened. I would put myself in the
You could
realm
laugh
of
about that. Just to pause, I don't know if I believe the word enlightened. He's more enlightened than a lot of people that I've ever been around. But yeah,
yeah.
say more about what you were going to ask. I just had
Yeah,
a button with
I
enlightened.
know. I was when I hear that about teachers, I think, oh my gosh, how can I be out teaching? But I was listening to a podcast recently by Jonathan Faust. He teaches,
Yeah.
kind of a Buddhist based, yeah, Vipassana meditation practice. And he said that we're moving out of the era of the guru that's, up on the pedestal. And, we just think that they're enlightened and perfect, and into the era of the wounded healer. So
Hmm.
that's where I put myself in
Yeah.
the wounded healer category. But and I also Jonathan Faust in one of his Dharma talks was talking about how um, Ram Dass said at one point, like in his late 60s or something, I'm just as neurotic as ever after all these years of meditation, but I'm in a totally different place because I see and witness my neuroses. So
Mhm.
I thought that was
Yeah.
interesting.
Of that. I
Mhm.
really also love this vision of creating a community of autonomous adult learners, and that we're all learners, and there's so much wisdom in the group, and I can be in facilitator role sometimes and in learner role other times, and that it can be much less like hierarchical and role based.
Exactly, exactly. And at least the 20 or so people who've signed up for my light program so far, this online learning is new to basically all of them. So
Hmm.
that'll be interesting, an interesting learning curve in and of itself.
Hmm.
But I've found Erin is the one who got me interested in an online program this past year called The Art of Money with Barry Tesler. And I was shocked how much I was able to dedicate time, independent study time at home, and came to really cherish pausing and listening to her and reading her materials and working with her worksheets. So I hope that this group can catch the fire, the spirit of being in community but being apart.
Hmm.
So,
You hold.
Erin, I would love to have you guide us through some sort of process here that demonstrates a little bit of your expertise.
So many things we could do. Do you have a particular flavor of something?
Yes, I would love, since this will be, I'm going to publish this as soon as it can upload onto YouTube. I know that right now there's a collective kind of mania that happens, at least in the United States. I do have some people signed up who live in Europe, And I don't think
Hmm.
it's as crazy. I've never been in Europe at Christmas. Oh, yeah, I have. I was in Portugal and Spain at Christmas time. There's not the same kind of mania there, in my experience, as here during the holidays. So maybe you could just give us something that we could use this month to touch into our core essence.
Yeah, I would love to do that. So, what I'm thinking is maybe I can do a small list of a few different practices. People may resonate with all or one or whatever that you can use during the season of mania.
That sounds
So, does that
great.
sound okay? Okay. So, what I'd like to start with is this really helpful invitation to recognize that right now and in any moment of our lives, we are in a living relationship with this ground that's supporting us. And particularly in our culture, and particularly during the season of mania, maybe even more, we can go decades without really feeling experientially that there's this support under us, and we're always in a relationship with it. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. I'll do it too right now. And let your attention really drop down to sensing. It might be your pelvis on your chair, might be your feet on the ground, or both. And it takes probably an extra 10 to 15 seconds to let this go from concept in your head to real bodily experience. Just sense that there is this greater body under you, supporting you. And we can't go wrong trusting the support. In fact, feeling our weight and releasing ourselves a little more into that relationship of receiving the support that's there can be really helpful. And notice if you can have a sense of this ground that's supporting you, just feeling it, and also include your breathing. So see if both of those can live together. And maybe just together we'll follow 3 breaths. And just noticing anything that wants to soften all the way down, sensing the breath, maybe even down to those sitting bones. And then I want to invite you to notice, can you have that sense of the ground, just feeling the ground support and yourself in relationship with it, and your breathing, and then open to sound. So we're in our body, but we're also not just in our body. We're always in a moment and in the world, and we can sense this space around us, and that it's alive. So just notice all these 3 things living together. We can do this in 30 seconds or a minute. In embodied life work, usually we call this ground, sound, breath. I often like to teach it ground, breath, sound, so that we can, many of us who are so out of our bodies can really make those interconnections first before opening out. So you can let your eyes open when you like. And this is a simple one, sound, breath. It's really basic, but it's amazing when you're in line at the grocery store. I want to create a little visual aid here if I can do it quickly enough. Let me find a piece of paper. And I think I can do this. Okay, this looks kind of funny, but I think it will work. So I love this image of the triangle. And I have this image for our human experience. And in our culture, usually, this is like your body down here, and this is your head up here. And a lot of the times we have so much of our attention and our energy up in the head and what's going on in the stories and planning and all that good stuff, right? But with very little connection with our body and next to none with the ground, right? And it's just like in the Yoga Sutras say, it's mistaking our thoughts for reality is what causes suffering. And through these embodied life practices, we do this. And you still have your thoughts, but you're more grounded in your body, on the earth, in reality. And then you can, like you said about Ram Dass, you can witness, oh, is that thought life-giving for me or not so much? And it all comes from this sense of, I'm right here. I mean, it sounds so basic, it almost feels corny to me to say how profound it is to stop 5 times a day to feel, I'm right here. And whatever else is going on, right?
Yes,
okay, so that's a very simple first story. What was that?
I read your triangle thing in your newsletter you sent out like a month ago, and that's such a wonderful thing to just turn that upside down and then right away just settle in.
It's right, feeling your butt. I mean, the amazingness of like feeling your butt. It's funny.
It's amazing.
And then we go like this, and it flips up, and you can just remember, like, oh yeah, I can come down again and have more of myself in real reality instead of this virtual reality,
Yeah, that one's particularly helpful for me with, I have a large percentage of the Vata dosha in my constitution. So that's like, it's a matter of survival.
Mm-hmm. It's really wonderful for Vata. So it's wonderful for all of us, but it reminds me, I don't know if this is true from your perspective. I know you've done a lot more advanced education in Ayurveda than I have at this point, but I remember years ago one visiting teacher saying, this was a relief to my pitta-heavy perfectionist-y personality, who said, don't worry so much about your dosha and what's currently going on with you. If you can keep your vata chilled out, grounded, it won't take everything else out of whack. And how important that is for all of us. I think our culture is pretty vata deranged. So, and yeah, it's really useful for all of us to ground our vata. And grounded doesn't need to be a fancy idea. It's just feeling the ground for an extra 5 or 10 seconds. It's really powerful.
Just that ground breath sound sequence, that is enough to get people started with their daily sitting practice as we go into the new year. So thank you
really
for
simple.
that. Mm-hmm.
Can I do one more, Patricia?
Oh, yes. Oh, please.
I would love to. That was just my short intro of finding the ground, and this will be short too, but and I think you listened to a practice that I sent out like this, but it's such a wonderful one during the season. So I just want to set it up really briefly by saying something that was really profound for me to learn from this neurologist, Rick Hansen, who wrote a book called The Buddha's Brain. He said this, I love this phrase, and it so resonates for me. He said, our brains are wired to accept positive experience like Teflon, non-stick, right? And negative experience like Velcro. Based on our ancestors and the history, like the ones who were looking for danger and what's wrong were the ones who survived, right? And that was really helpful a long time ago when survival was much more what we were working with. And now it's not, and it's so helpful to be mindful of that tendency, not to blame ourselves for getting negative or grumpy or whatever, but to know we can take responsibility for that with how we pay attention. And this is such a wonderful practice to bring to any time of your life. I think it's central, but especially during this time when we can get, I love that, just I'm on that phrase that you said, in the mania of the holidays, or family struggles, or all of those things. So we always start with sensing the ground and just being right here to do this. And what we're going to do is use our attention in a particular way to water the seeds of the good experiences a little bit more. So our Teflon to all the many blessings in our life is less nonstick, might stick, like we can actually take it into our bodily experience and be nourished by the blessings instead of just sticky to the negative, that our brains by default will do that, So can I guide us in this little practice shortly? Okay, so I'm going to invite you to close your eyes again. This is nice to be inside yourself, especially sitting in front of a screen, I know, to just come back to feeling in your own body and your own self right here. And I'm going to invite you to just make space in your awareness for reviewing your day. And whether, someone's watching this in the morning and they've been up for an hour or at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And just allow to come into your awareness any memories that were even slightly touching, slightly something in you had a little bit of an appreciation or a sense of a yes to that. And I just want to offer couple quick examples. It doesn't have to be profound. One that I love is the feeling of being in the shower and the smell of my shampoo. I like that. Or, you're thirsty and you have a sip of something, and something in you is like, that was nice. It can also be a beautiful moment of connection, or seeing your child do something, or a friendly checker, anything, any of these moments. So I'm going to invite you to choose one for starters, and kind of just imagine yourself in that situation, almost like you're putting yourself in a movie, playing back that moment. And you can say something as simple, I do this silently to myself, say, and I'm going to let myself feel that in my body. Just how whatever that positive moment was felt. And we take an extra 5 or 10 seconds to feel in the chest, in the belly, even in your spine. What did that moment of appreciation feel like? And then we'll do another one. You let another moment come into your awareness. A helpful pointer, if someone's having a hard day, one of my friends reminded me of this, it's so useful. When we can't find the blessings, you're just in the dark and you're struggling, and people you love are having a hard time or ill or anything. A great way to find the blessings if you're struggling here is with this question of what's not wrong. What's not wrong? Well, my legs work and I'm able to stand still. And I know that's not true for everyone. And then I'm going to let myself feel in my body how grateful that my legs work. Okay, so let's just do this with a few more moments, and you can silently say to yourself, and I'm going to let myself feel that in my body. And you'll feel when it lands. I often get a sigh, like, and then you let another one come. This is like a gratitude journaling, but we actually take it into an embodied experience, and it goes so much deeper than just thinking about the nice moments. Would you be willing, Patricia, to share one of your moments?
Yes, I
Can be,
had.
can I give one suggestion? When you share it, do it in present tense language. So like, I'm standing in the shower and I'm feeling the hot water, or whatever it is. So we're really there with you. So go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, a little background is that I'm standing in my kitchen making lunches for my kids early this morning, and I'm listening to a Dharma talk by Jonathan Faust, and he mentioned something about your day, nothing happening how you planned it for the day. Okay, so I'm in my present day. That's how this day was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at my office waiting for my first client to arrive this morning. And she is not there at 10 o'clock as we had planned. And she's calling and saying, I wasn't planning on the fog this morning. It's taking me longer than planned. And then it's 10:15, and she says, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Then 10:15 rolls around and she's not there. And at about 10:20, she texts, I just got pulled over for speeding.
Oh.
So she arrives at 10:30, and I had planned this wonderful goal setting sequence that I was going to guide her through, and was feeling very prepared. And I am feeling not so prepared as I'm sensing her unsettledness. And then the manager for the San Antonio Yoga Center brings in some peace and calm essential oil while my client's regrouping in the bathroom, and she said, let your client smell some of this when she comes back in, and put it back in my office after you're done. And
Mhm.
my client walks in, and I get her on the massage table for this goal setting sequence that I asked her, do you want to be seated or lying down? And she opted for lying down. And I take her hands in mine, and I rub I put the essential oil in a carrier oil and rub that all into her hands and behind her ears. And I'm smelling the smell and feeling both of us settle into this imperfect, beautiful moment.
Mhm. Mhm. It's beautiful. Can you feel it almost again alive in you and what that feels like in here?
Absolutely.
I think it's amazing. I know if we had a blood test before and after doing that practice, hormones would change. Everything in our blood chemistry would change of doing this kind of, one of my clients calls it the gratitude highlights reel. And it's amazing with doing this practice and pausing to really let some of these moments come in, how then it can make you so much more aware in those moments of wanting to when they're actually happening. Like, oh, I really want to feel it and take it in. So it's like magic.
It is like magic. I should mention I'm feeling like that right now. Like I'm taking in this time with you that's so rare. We're both so busy, and I
Mm,
just love you so much.
I love you so much. So happy for you and your school, and really honored and delighted to be a part of it.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you so much for all of your support and teachings over the years. And anybody who has benefited from my teaching has benefited from yours indirectly, because,
Isn't that beautiful how that happens?
yeah, it's a very beautiful flow. Yeah. So
Wonderful.
I'm feeling like this is complete. There were some other things that other topics that I maybe wanted to cover, but I think for this particular moment, it feels very nice, and it feels with those three practices just what we need right now.
It's great.
Hmm. So, how can people find you, Erin, if they want to connect with you before school gets started?
My website's probably the easiest way, and it is bodyhappy.com. The name came from one of my Tibetan nun friends who said she felt body happy and doing yoga with me many years ago. So bodyhappy.com is my website. You can, my husband and I send out a newsletter. I know you referred to that during our time together, and that's a great way. We love to stay in touch and send out lots of free stuff through that channel.
Yeah, not
And
only free stuff, but it's actually a newsletter. Erin's a wonderful writer, and Carl is too. And it's one of those things that comes into your inbox that I never throw away. If I don't have time to read it right in that moment, I come back to it because it's not internet fluff. There's always something wonderful in there that is a great takeaway and very grounding. Hmm.
great.
And I
Thanks.
know on Body Happy, I've sent many of my students and clients there to download your $5 Feldenkrais lessons, and those are great. And I know one of my students really became attached to Carl's laughter
Oh,
through the.
yeah. He's got a great laugh, doesn't he?
He does.
And we're going to have a lot more in the next year available. I've been teaching some small online courses. I'm going to have my Women Embodied programs coming in March, and we'll have a lot more of our lessons probably recorded just for the purposes of people to do from afar instead of recordings of our classes. So more good stuff will be coming there too.
Great. Yes. And if anybody ever wants to go on retreat with you, you guide retreats in Costa Rica. And where was the second place that you said that you?
Um, Santa Fe, Salt
Santa
Lake City,
Fe.
of
Yes,
course.
Santa Fe. That one, it sounds good to me because that's just short drive from here. Well, short in American terms. And then Laos, you have a brother in Laos, so you want to do something that involves an elephant tours and
Yeah,
retreating in Laos. So that
working
sounds
on the
wonderful.
details of that, but that will definitely be coming. Yeah.
Yes, very good. Well, I honor you so deeply, Erin. Thank you for your time today.
And me too, you too. I adore you, and thank you so much for inviting me.
I adore you too. Bye bye.
Bye.